Well, thank you all for taking the time to join in on the AAHT Housing Innovation Fund Request for Applications webinar. I have a couple of slides that I will move through quickly so that we have plenty of time for questions at the end. If you can place your questions in the Q&A section, I will answer them at the end. I don't have great vision to the Q&A while I'm presenting, but you are welcome to raise a hand or flag if there's something that I need to address right away. And let's see here. All right, so today we are just going to do a quick overview of the fund, since it's a new fund, program goals and outcomes, application process and timeline, eligibility and project types, the evaluation criteria that we're going to use, and then, as I mentioned before, we'll leave time to answer questions that you may have. A few people submitted questions in advance, so I'll also answer those. And just so you know, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording, along with an FAQ of any questions that were answered during this session, will be uploaded onto the AAHT website, probably early tomorrow. So Boulder County Housing Department is seeking proposals from qualified organizations to pilot, scale, or test innovative approaches that advance equitable access to affordable and attainable housing in Boulder County. So the Housing Innovation Fund is supported by the Affordable and Attainable Housing Tax, and it aims to drive creative solutions to housing challenges across the region. The Housing Innovation Fund will provide up to $500,000 in one-time grants for bold, community-driven projects that make housing more affordable, stable, and accessible for people in Boulder County. And I just put the AAHT ballot language for some reason. I want to say AAAA ballot language on this slide so that we can just kind of ground ourselves in the initial, with in the intent of the affordable and attainable housing tax. And really, it does cover a broad range of eligible activities and projects. The Innovation Fund itself is more focused on the programming side versus development initiatives, but that's not to say that there wouldn't be some development projects that would be a good fit for this fund as well. So program goals. Really, it's to expand access to affordable and attainable housing, improve housing stability for low and moderate income residents. It's really to pilot new models of housing development or service delivery in our community, and to foster cross-sector and community-based community collaborations. And most importantly, it really is to advance racial equity and housing outcomes in Boulder County. I think I won't read through the desired outcomes, but I think they reflect the program goals. And really our goal really is to to unearth some interesting ideas for how we can advance housing equity in Boulder County. As I mentioned before, there's a total pool of funds of $500,000. The grant range is up to $100,000 per project. The funding term of this grant cycle is February to December of 2026. And so because this is a new fund and we're trying to get money out the door, I just want to highlight that there's going to be a couple of things going on. This is the FY 2025 funding pool that that is open right now. There will be an FY 2026 funding pool that will open. Let's see, what did I decide that would happen? It will open in Q1 2026. So we'll have two funding pools that will run fairly concurrently. And then there'll be a third, the FY 2027 funding pool will open in Q4 of 2026, and that will move us into a more traditional cycle of having an RFA open and awards announced in advance of the year that the funds will be used in. So just so you know, if you receive an FY 2025 award, you would not be able to apply for funding in the FY 2026 pool with the same project, but that would be eligible for the 2027 funds. And if you have questions on that, throw it in the Q&A and we can dive into it a little more just so that everybody understands kind of how we're going to be allocating funding here over the course of the next year. The application portal is open and will be open until December 4th at 5 p.m. That is when all grants or applications are due. Awards will be announced by the end of the year, and then we'll be getting grant agreements out, working to get agreements out in January. If I have I'll have contact information at the end of the webinar. So if while you're working through the grant application, you have technical difficulties, you can reach out to AAHT@bouldercounty.gov, and I'll be able to assist you in working through any technical difficulties for the grant application. Who is eligible? So this funding pool is open to 501c3 nonprofits or government entities that are providing services in Boulder County. The two main stipulations are that there's no unresolved compliance issues with any of the other Boulder County funding pools within the last 5 years, and also that there's no duplication of services or that your program is not funded by other sources. So if you are already receiving grant funding for a project that you are proposing, the request is that you clearly identify how funding from the Housing Innovation Fund will fill a gap or meet a need that another source of funding is not meeting. Examples of eligible projects. So really we're really encouraging innovative ideas. And because it's kind of a small pool of money, we're looking at pilots and hopefully projects that, as a community, we can find deeper funding for, and in ongoing years. But ideas that, some ideas that come to mind, initiatives that address systemic barriers to housing for marginalized populations, programs that provide rental assistance or subsidies to low and moderate income residents while they pursue economic stability opportunities, pilots with the goal of addressing workforce housing challenges in Boulder County, programs that specifically target historically underserved communities to ensure equitable access to housing resources, programs that provide mediation or eviction prevention services, initiatives that expand home ownership pathways for historically underserved communities. And I really do want to reiterate that if the project that you're thinking about isn't on this list, I still really recommend that you submit an application because we really would like to see your ideas and, be as broad-minded as possible for what pilots we bring forward. Ineligible projects and costs for the purposes of this fund include, but aren't limited to, indirect cost. So all operational cost must be captured in the submitted budget. There will be no 15% indirect cost, just general indirect cost allowed. Capital improvements and development cost. Those type of projects are funded in other grant programs that we offer, and land acquisition. Evaluation criteria. If you've already had a chance to look through the RFA, you'll see that it's divided by 1, 2, 3, 4 into 5 sections. And so the 5 sections of the RFA, the questions within each section will be part of the evaluation criteria for that section. So the criteria is organizational capacity. Do you have the experience and financial stability and staffing to manage the pilot or project? Program alignment, does it fit with Boulder County Housing Department priorities? Client impact, is there a measurable benefit to the target population? Adaptability and collaboration, that's where we want to see that there are some cross-sector partnerships, or at least that we know that we are not duplicating services. And equitable access. Does your program or pilot prioritize underserved communities? Just a few quick reminders before I jump into the Q&A portion. The application does include the narrative responses. There is a financial documentation upload that is reflected in question 7. And then there is a program budget upload. And so a link to that Excel spreadsheet can be found in question 12 and also uploaded under question 12. The portal that we're using doesn't accept zip files or external links. If you do have a problem uploading one of the documents, please reach out to aaht@bouldercounty.gov and we'll help you work through that. And there's a max file size of 10 megabytes per document. All materials need to be submitted by December 4th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Here's a link to the application portal if you haven't been there yet. And once again, if you have issues, you can reach out to aaht@bouldercounty.gov. And so now I'll jump in and answer a couple of the questions that I received in advance, and then I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll move over to the Q&A and open it up to just either questions that you've already submitted, or provided that I can uh, answer questions live, make it so that we can unmute and you can ask your questions instead of submitting them in the Q&A. So, one of the questions is the website references another round of funding in Q1 for 2026. As I'm considering how quickly we can pull together a compelling proposal, it would be helpful to know how secure that timeline and funding is. I kind of touched on this earlier, but the FY 2026 funding round will open in Q1 of 2026, probably closer to March, because we'll be working on getting grant applications out. But that is a very firm, excuse me, that is a pretty firm timeline, and because we're really focused on getting this fund into a more traditional funding cycle. The next question was, we are considering applying for this round just for stakeholder engagement, relationship building, and capacity building towards a pilot project, and then using what we learned through that process to apply for another round of funding. Is that kind of phased approach wise in your opinion, or will it be important to have as much of that pre-work done before applying for this fund? My take on that is to apply when your pilot or project is when you have a well-rounded or well-formed idea in place. So if that means that you choose to apply in 2026 versus this funding round, I think that would be the direction that I would pursue if you're still trying to pull together your partnerships, because I think the more complete your proposal is, the more likely that it will make it through to a funding award. The language also refers to a desire for organizations to work with municipalities for programs. We've been working extensively with county staff on this topic, but not as much with cities because of and I kind of paraphrased here just to protect identity of the question asker, specific needs and location of our sector. Would indicating partnership with county staff and service providers be invaluable, or are you really hoping to see projects that involve cities? And so I don't think that there was a specific requirement to work with a municipality. It really was the focus was on kind of the cross-sector partnerships. And really, even with that, it could be two nonprofits working together. What we really want to show is, or want a project to show, is that they are integrated into with community partners within Boulder County, that they know that the pilot or project that they are proposing is not duplicating services, and that we really are making the most efficient use of our resources. So we have some flexibility around that, and you are not required to be partnered with a municipality or, for that case, the county in order to submit a pilot. But we do want to see some form of at least knowledge of collaborative efforts that exist within our community. I am going to stop sharing this and I'll go to the Q&A. I see there's one question. can we apply for existing programs, or can we only apply for new pilot programs? So I believe that existing programs can apply as long as you meet your programs kind of meet the spirit of the Housing Innovation Fund. And so just off the top of my head, and I'm not going to mention them, I could think of several programs in the community right now that I actually think are innovative enough or are reaching providing access to marginalized communities that maybe that this Housing Innovation Fund would be appropriate funding source for. So I would encourage you to apply if you feel like your project falls in within the spirit of the Housing Innovation Fund. I see another question from Katie. What is the funding period if applying in Q1 2026? So that would likely go, from April to March of April of 2026 to March of 2027. But in that case, even though there might be some overlap, you would be eligible to apply in 2027 for those 2027 funds, so that if you were to have a project that was approved for ongoing funding, you would have kind of a seamless transition between the two funding cycles. If there's other questions, you can raise your hand and I can bring you off mute if I see you, if I need to do that. Sorry, I'm not always a Zoom person here. I'm just looking through the participant list and I see a great mix of strong current partners as well as lots of new names. So that is really exciting. Okay, everybody, if there's no additional questions, I'm just gonna go ahead and end here. Oops, I see one more. If I understand correctly, if you apply and receive FY25 funds, you cannot apply for FY26, but can apply for FY27. FY27 funds would not be available until April of 2027. Is that right? So not exactly. The FY 2027 funds will be those will move into a traditional funding cycle, or at least more traditional for Boulder County, of January through December of 2027. Now, we might have to make some individual allowances for any carryover project, but we would handle that on a case-by-case basis. But in general, the FY 2027 funding cycle will be January through December of 2027. You are welcome. And I don't know that I addressed this, but I know we talked a little bit about collaborative or showing some form of collaborative cross-sector collaboration. You do not have to apply as a solo applicant if you want to apply with a partner. We encourage that as well. I just ask that one partner be named as the lead so that we know, um, that for funding wise and reimbursement, that we will be just working with the one primary partner as lead. And with that, I think I will wrap up. I'm eager to see the proposals that come in, and we will be having a cross-departmental review staff. And just so you know, just for transparency, housing department projects will not be considered under this grant, just because we're sitting in as the main evaluators. But we will have a cross-departmental review board that will be looking at the proposals in light of the eligibility criteria described in the RFA. So with that, thank you all for joining, and I will post the recording and answers to just written answers to the questions that you submitted on the AAHT website, which just for I will just drop into the chat real quick. For those of you who haven't been there. And you can find links to the RFA, and within the RFA, there's links to the Excel spreadsheet for the budget and anything else that you would need as well. So thank you all very much.